Well, we've got a clip of it in the Obama deception news out of Missouri saying if you run a misleading ad, and they're going to decide, the police are, about Obama saying he's not a Christian or he's a socialist, that you're going to be arrested. And that was announced in Illinois, Missouri, Florida, Vermont, of all places, which is usually a pretty free state. Well, they're back announcing it again, having prosecutors and police and others say that if you say something about Obama that they say is not true, not found by a court, not found by a civil court, but if they say you're lying about our great dear leader, that I guess you can be disappeared. And here's the headline: Obama to unleash truth squads to counter negative coverage. GOP describes squads of supporters as propaganda teams to deceive voters. Well, they're saying Obama's deceiving. Not allowed to say that. I guess arrest the GOP. So there is that report. Here's another one out of the Washington Times, just some miscellaneous news out of the gates here. Feds shut down Amish farm for selling fresh milk to their neighbors. And they say they're going to shut the farm down altogether now. And, you know, I actually have a raw milk from outside San Antonio here that I drink every morning as I go on air with whey protein, which itself comes from raw milk, the brand I use. Pure evil. Pure evil. I'm having my breakfast. I've been up since 6 a.m. I'm having my breakfast as I go on air. I'm a bad terrorist. And by the way, I'm not joking. According to the government, I'm evil. They've said that it's a felony to even buy the stuff, according to their new interpretations. Doesn't matter if the Queen of England will only drink it and the rich elite are obsessed with it and fine restaurants serve it. They're all going to be left alone. You are going to drink the boiled, pasteurized, homogenized sludge. And why did, if you go back in the 50s on record, big dairies lobby, and people like Kraft lobby that produce cheese, or so-called cheese, to have raw milk banned for over-the-counter sale? Before, you got it delivered every day. A little truck came by, put it right there at your door. Why? It lasts longer. It tastes better. It's a probiotic, good for your guts, good for your bacteria flora, because Big Agra was basically bought up by Big Pharma, and they don't like to have to feed you something fresh, because if any blood or any pus or any cow manure gets into regular fresh milk, the whole thing has to be thrown out. You've got to keep it neurotically clean. And it's very hard for big industries to industrialize producing fresh milk. It's a small operation is what it's designed for. But if you boil it and cook it 3 or 4 times, it can have feces in it. And under regulations, it's allowed to. It can have blood and pus. They can overwork the cows and give them synthetic growth hormone. And that's what they do. So they want to feed you. And by the way, my family's farmers on my dad's side, and been involved in the dairy, the whole 9 yards. I've milked cows. I've had dairy experts on. I've had historians on. This is a fact. And it's the same way they put all these preservatives in garbage and food, so they can feed you rotten food. That's what MSG is. World War I, the Japanese learned on record how to add this toxic chemical, MSG, monosodium glutamate, a variant of salt. They've changed the molecules so that even rotten meat would taste good, because the Japanese didn't like eating rotten horse meat and stuff that was canned. But the Japanese basically developed what got turned into Spam today. And it's very toxic, but makes you want to eat more, and makes a rotten sewer rat taste like mama's cherry pie. So that's what's going on that front. And they proudly announce the FDA won its 2-year fight to shut down an Amish farmer who was selling fresh raw milk to eager customers. And so that is that. And they are announcing they're going to start coming after everybody. I know until about 2 years ago, I could go once a week to the farmer's market in Austin. And they had Mennonite folks selling, who were driving down from near Waxahachie, selling cheese from raw milk and selling vegetables and stuff. And if you walked around by the back of their van and said, this is a private sale. You know, you're buying this privately for me. That's how it gets around all the federal and state garbage. You could buy a couple gallons of delicious milk that farmer had been pumping out the night before or 3 a.m. in the morning some days, putting in the containers and driving it down to Austin. I mean, sometimes you got it, it was still warm. Not anymore, because they sent inspectors and harassers out there to shut all that down outside of law. And they're shutting everything down. You try to sell peaches side of the road, ain't happening. Try to sell cactuses to tourists side of the road, ain't happening. Try to have a lemonade stand, ain't happening. Girl Scout cookies, ain't happening. Because they're here to crack down on the old-fashioned market and call it black market. You're not going to associate with your neighbors. The Food Safety Act, pushed by Big Pharma and Big Agro, doesn't allow you to can strawberries and give them to your neighbor, or put carrots in a container and can them, or pickles. You cannot even give it to your neighbor. You cannot serve it to your neighbor when they come to your home. It's just the end of basic humanity. It's humans being inserted into the modern Agenda 21 prison that is totally unsustainable. But they call it sustainable. They always create counterfeits and take over any movement for sustainability, for the environment, and say it's about carbon dioxide, not about GMO and toxic waste. It's about carbon dioxide and taxing you and shutting down your farm and ranch. It's not about 9 out of 10 reactors worldwide publicly leaking radiation because they're 30, 40, 50 years old, rotting. It's not about the troops using DU, a death sentence. It's about carbon dioxide that you exhale and that plants respirate from. So there it is. They're very, very proud of that. London Guardian article, News Corps executives at risk of U.S. prosecution for willful blindness. American anti-corporation law holds company chiefs culpable for consciously avoiding knowledge of corrupt deeds at News Corp. And they're gearing up, I guess, the Justice Department to look at clapping old Rupert Murdoch in irons. And boy, you see Fox News now, there's a lot of Obama worshiping going on. A lot of hosts are saying he's a man of the Lord, he's good, he cares about us. After all, the Truth Squad say you might be arrested. We're all learning about our new freedom. Of course, it doesn't even matter. Obama, I mean, if we don't get Ron Paul, it's Mitt Romney. I mean, that's a guy who's Barack Obama from a different party. I mean, he's a brother from another mother. He's these guys. The only difference is one has a D before his name, the other has an R before his name. Exact same policies, but it's so much fun to hate Obama and to feel like you're a winner if your guy gets into office. All right, that's just some of the little in sundry news articles. Here's another one. Vladimir Putin ridiculed after demanding Russians have more sex to halt declining population. Yeah, their population is smaller than Pakistan and Bangladesh now. It's gone down from 200 million to 142 million in the last 30 years. Communism didn't do too good for them. It was eugenics. And they do pay people to get married. They do encourage people to have children, large families. They got billboards up. The government pays you to have children. Boy, look at the difference. Again, I'm no fan of Putin, KGB guy, all this, but compared to the New World Order, he's just old-fashioned strongman trying to hold his crumbling country together. The globalists running our country are poisoning our food and water. Our population's at 1.3 replacement rate. For every 2 adults, they have 1.3 children, except for the giant immigrant influx. Western culture is completely dying. Pat Buchanan's written about it in Death of the West. Japan's dying. They have 1.2. Italy's 1.2. I mean, all these cultures are dying because we're under the eugenic system. I mean, and then Putin's bad for saying there should be Russians in the future. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to see there being, you know, no South Africans in the future, or no, Japanese in the future, or no Mexicans in the future, or no Germans in the future. I mean, this is incredible. The eugenicists have taught us to all hate ourselves and all hate our cultures, but only love the plastic, fake, MSG, aspartame, Miley Cyrus, garbage culture. Justin Bieber garbage. We have been totally and completely force-fed this death And it's all by design. We have all the documents, how they destroy the family in the 20s and 30s, how they break it up, how they create welfare to make you dependent. Once you're dependent, then they play the welfare class off against the middle class, the real enemy, and force sterilization, then of the poor in that next phase. And we're entering that next phase. And I read to you World Bank documents yesterday where they said, have mobile sterilization vans. If you want to get your welfare, you'll have to be sterilized. Of course, then it'll be moved on to everybody else as well. And then, of course, the Detroit newspaper came out yesterday and said, put sterilants in the water for everybody. I got news for you, Jack. I got the White House Science Czar. I got the Rockefeller documents. I got them all. It's on record. They're already jacking the water. They're already jacking the food. They're already doing it. That's why people ask, well, why can the inner city people still have kids, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, but yuppies that are mainly white, but also Hispanic and black, why can't they have kids? It's real simple. When they're hitting you with soft kill stuff, if you're 16 or 17, you can still have a child on average. This stuff is cumulative to build up, so it can't be directed and pointed at one causal instrument. So you wait to be 30, 35, 40 to have a kid, you're going to have to go get Buck Rogers type technology to be able to have that child, which is exactly what the globalists want. They'll then sell you the treatments to have a child after they've made you infertile. But by law, they're now announcing, as I said they would years ago, saying, but if you're going to get these therapies, we've got to be able to change genes that we say are bad because now there's government funding involved under the socialist health care. So your child's going to have 3 parents. We're going to put somebody else's genetics in there to fix it. Back live. Yeah, I'm playing this because I saw in the news today that they're going to put more women in frontline combat in the Marine Corps and in the Army. That's what that old piece of propaganda was about with Jessica Lynch when they said that she had engaged in all this incredible combat and killed all of these Iraqi troops while the men cowered. And, of course, it turned out the whole thing was a big Pentagon PR lie, so that they can basically, in the future, have a national draft that the federal government's been promoting to then conscript our daughters in to basically be camp women for the military. And, of course, rape is just epidemic when you put women in combat. Every culture, in every war, the soldiers get out of control and tend to rape the women of the countries they're occupying. It's just what happens. I have to say that the British marveled in the Revolutionary War. Almost all of George Washington's soldiers never engaged in any types of disreputable activity. And you know why? Because George Washington hung people. See, the minute a military lets their troops engage in any type of activity like this, everything goes to the devil. Everything just goes completely wild. Once you give in to this type of activity, society collapses. And that's why George Washington executed people and made examples out of it. Oh, you did something disreputable? You're dead. Because George Washington understood and wrote about the fact that, A, it was the moral thing to do, but B, that's how they're going to win the hearts and minds, is not behaving like the redcoats who'd been burning and pillaging all over the world and came to the United States, came to the colonies, and were burning down churches, raping women, engaging in all sorts of war crimes. That, of course, worked against them and began to turn the population who were British subjects towards the rebellion that was only 3% of the population. That's why the globalists are going to stage false flag attacks in the future to be blamed on the liberty movement or try to provocateur people into doing things. Patriots never target civilian targets. Patriots never start a fight. You understand that? Patriots give quarter. Patriots don't lie. And patriots have courage. That's what patriots do. And they're patriots to basic liberty and basic freedom. Now, if you go to Infowars.com, we have the headline, our top story, award-winning filmmaker and, of course, TV star, movie star, former head of the Screen Actors Guild, Ed Asner, has come out and said that he has Navy SEAL sources, and those sources are known to yours truly, and I'm going to try to talk to some of them today. and that they've been told by active duty SEALs that the staged terror attack event is on, and that the events would be staged very, very soon internationally and domestically, but mainly in the Strait of Hormuz, as a pretext to launch a wider war.